कोशिश मेरी होती है कि नेक्स्ट मीटिंग में आने से पहले
हाँ.
नेक्स्ट, जैसे आज मैंने सुबह पिछली वाली मीटिंग का सारा सुना था.
Oh, very good. Very good. I
आई
wasn't sure.
ट्राई टू.
हाँ, नहीं नहीं, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. वैसे तो
Hi
other than
Dheeraj,
this,
hi Mukta.
हाय शालिनी, हाउ
hello.
आर यू? लॉन्ग टाइम.
Yeah, long time. Yeah, really, Mukta. I
So
know we were together at that part of the world, and then
yeah.
I don't know, we couldn't connect. I'm sorry. बस busy
No,
busy
no,
बहुत
it's
चल
okay,
रहा
it's okay.
था.
सब ऐसे ही होता है लाइफ.
Yeah,
फैमिली
I
लाइफ
know
इज
that's
लाइक
how it
दैट
is.
ओनली.
I know, yeah, but had a good vacation. Yeah, it was
चलो,
nice.
गुड गुड.
Or how are things at your end, Mukta?
या
Dheeraj,
या
all
आई एम
good?
फाइन, ऑल गुड.
Heard your dad was not doing too well. He's better now. Good to know.
Oh yeah. Thankfully, I know. That's why I had to rush back. Or
अच्छा.
I might have
Yeah,
still
मुझे
maybe been
आपने बताया था
there.
you'll be going in November. You'll be going back. पहले नवंबर का प्लान था ना आपका?
Yeah, October end, right? Huh? But then I came
October.
back in just before I came back in the second week of October.
अच्छा. So थोड़ा ही
Because
2-3
Papa
हफ्ते
ki
पहले.
thodi, yeah, he was kind of ekdam se na.
हम्म.
It was getting alarming, so then I came back, and then he's kind of settled now. I
Okay.
think I'm also kind of settled now back to my.
You spent a long time there.
Yeah,
You know,
I
it's,
know. It
you have
just
to get
take
used
time,
to.
getting back
Yeah,
to the Indian routine.
that's true.
Yeah, it's good though. Yeah, it's good. This has its
Yeah.
own, yeah. So anyway, carry on.
Okay. Chalo,
Yeah.
nice to see you.
Have fun. Yeah,
Are you
I
going
know.
to join us or no? Okay. All right.
Uh,
No,
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 I won't
that's fine.
actually. Yeah, I
That's
have to
perfectly
do,
fine.
yeah, my
I
own
was
thing.
just,
But I actually am in touch with your stuff, Dheeraj,
oh,
and
you
then
are?
we had quite an animated discussion. I think Aji hui hai, Sanjay kind of, yeah. I, I was talking about spiders in my garden and in Shivas's garden, and
हाँ.
how we just want to destroy them when we see them, like ekdam se chalo oh jale ban rahe and all that. Anyway, we see them, and then Sanjay shared this very interesting take on spider ki Vedanta mein kaise isko yeah, it was very nice, the analogy. I really liked it.
Yeah, that's true.
I know.
Good. You have
Chalo,
a
carry on. Yeah, there's
budding
lots
teacher
to.
now. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, we all in our own way. We have to kind
Yes,
of,
exactly.
continue with it. Yeah, take care.
Okay.
चलो जी.
Okay.
So, last time we talked about the creation theory, and it's so vital. I just wanted to make sure we understand all aspects of it, and it's very hard to get through it all in one go. So, I put together a few questions or a few points which I wanted to discuss today and make sure we are all understanding it properly. And the first three things we talked about in the last session, the last two we didn't talk about, but they are sort of corollary or the key takeaways from the last session, which are not, which need to be discussed. So, first thing I want to do is I want to ask you guys, in whichever way you can, to answer the first question. What is Brahman? What is Ishwar? What is Maya? And if in any way that you want to answer, that's totally fine. But just start talking and start sharing your thoughts, and then we will see where, if anything, we are getting stuck, and we'll correct it. Okay. So who wants to go? Sanjay, you want to go first?
नहीं, first thing is,
Ah,
I don't think there's any difference between Ishwar and Brahman.
okay.
First, we have to clarify that these are two alag entities we are talking about, or one single entity.
Okay. Good point.
So,
That's a good starting point. There is no difference. Mukta, what is your thought on that? Ishwar and Brahman.
I would say कि when we say Ishwar, we are talking about the जो गॉड, जो भक्ति की तरफ से जो सगुण ब्राह्मण की बात
Yes.
करते
Yeah,
हैं,
yeah, that's right.
that is Ishvara, and what the Brahman is the all pervading जो Brahman consciousness है या awareness है, that is Brahman. And Maya would be like जो सारी सृष्टि है वही माया है, like it's the appearance or whatever, जो जो मुझे अभी समझ आया है कि जो ऑल प्रिवेडिंग ब्राह्मण है, उसमें हम सब पूरा यूनिवर्स जो एक है, जिसका एक ब्राह्मण इज द ऑल थ्रू एंड थ्रू, द वन थिंग जिसके अंदर ये सारी सृष्टि है, probably that is Maya. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's very good. I mean, both of you are right. Because Ishwar, Brahman, Maya it's a very interesting relationship. And it depends on your standpoint. So, first of all, let me tell you there's an equation which you can remember, which is Ishwar is equal to Brahman plus Maya. That's the equation. Everything is Brahman, of course. So, Maya is nothing really by itself. But just remember this equation: Ishwar is Brahman plus Maya. The Ishwar is thought about as a all-pervading being whose essence is Brahman. Just like Jeev. You'll say, what is the difference between Dheeraj or between Sanjay and Brahman? There is no difference, really. Sanjay is Brahman because Sanjay is Atma. That is from a Paramarthika perspective, correct? That's from the essence of Sanjay is Atma, or that is Brahman. Same thing, Atma, Brahman. Atma and Brahman, there is no difference at all. Not at all. But when I look at it from the Vyavaharika perspective, that means when I look at it from the point of view of this world, where I am a separate individual and I'm thinking of myself as a separate individual, there is a big difference between Sanjay and Brahman. Because Sanjay is just this body and this entity. Mukta is another entity. I am another entity. Ishwar is another all-pervading entity. Sabka jo adhishthana hai, the basis of everything, the adhar of everything is Brahman. So yes, there is no difference between any of these. But from a Vyavaharika perspective, there is a lot of difference. So, when we say in Vedant, be a Karam Yogi, that means Ishwar Arpan Buddhi, ya Ishwar Prasad Buddhi, give everything to Ishwar. All the results are given by Ishwar, pray to Ishwar, all these things. Obviously, we are assuming that there is a good doer, which is Dheeraj, and there is another person, which is Ishwar, usko main kar raha hu. So there's a difference between the two. Otherwise, I can't say, I do everything for Ishwar. But if I look at it from a Paramarthika perspective, there is no difference. So Ishwar is, like Mukta said, technically defined as Saguna Brahma. That means it is Brahman when the Brahman has been, along with Maya, transformed into this big world. Right? When it is seen as this world, that is Ishwar. When we think about Brahman as Nirgun Brahman, just pure consciousness, pure awareness, pure existence, Satchidanandan, then we can only think Brahman, non-dual. But we can also conceive of Brahman in the form of this world that is called Saguna Brahman. What gives the Saguna? What gives the Gunas? What gives the appearance of difference, diversity? The thing that gives the appearance is called Maya. That is why they say, roughly speaking, Ishwar is equal to Brahman plus Maya. So now, and you have to understand this because then you will understand the first few verses of chapter 7 of the Gita, where Bhagavan Krishna said, I am Ishwar, I have a lower Prakriti, which is Maya, I have a higher Prakriti, which is Brahman. So he is saying the same equation, the same thing in a slightly different way. He is saying, I have two Prakritis. Not that he actually has two Prakritis. It's just a way of explaining that his Prakriti can be looked at from two sides. One side is Brahman, which is the basis of everything. The other side is Maya, which is the basis of this world, the creation of this world. Little complicated, but you'll get it. This is very, very important in Vedanta to understand. नहीं तो हम हमेशा confused रहेंगे. हम कहेंगे क्या हूं मैं? एक तरफ तुम कहते हो कि यू आर ब्राह्मण, दूसरी तरफ कहते हो भगवान को पूजा करो, ये भगवान को अर्पण करो, अपने कर्म कर्म करो. मेरे कर्म अच्छे काम करूंगा तो मुझे कर्म की फल मिलेगा. अगर मैं मुक्ता और संजय से डिफरेंट ही नहीं हूं, भगवान से डिफरेंट ही नहीं हूं, तो मेरे कर्म और मेरे फल का मतलब क्या हुआ? People get totally confused in Vedanta because they don't see these two aspects of Vedanta, the two drishtis, the Vyavaharika drishti, Paramarthika drishti. Sai? Paramarthika drishti, there's only Brahman. This world doesn't exist. Vyavaharika drishti, there is me, there is you, there is also this Ishwar. Ishwar also exists only in Vyavaharika drishti. And Maya is the thing which makes the difference between the Paramarthika and drishti and the Vyavaharika drishti. And Maya itself is just name and form, it's just knowledge. It cannot exist by itself. Maya needs Brahman as its basis for existence. आधार जो है वो ब्रह्मन है.
वही एक लाइन है ना कि माया इज द प्रोजेक्शन ऑफ ब्रह्मन. Brahman projects itself as Maya for people to experience and whatever.
So that we'll get there because that is actually what is the relationship between Brahman and this world. वो भी जो है, you're right, partially right. ठीक है? And I want us to fully understand that also. What actually that projection means. But right now, in this point, the first thing to understand is Adhar is Brahman of everything. But if you add Maya, ये सारा difference हो जाता है. You know, there's this thing, Vishwadharan, Gagan Sadrushan, Meghavarna Surhang Suhangam. ये एक prayer है विष्णु के बारे में. कहते हैं गॉड को विश्वधारण, विश्व का आधार. दैट इज ब्रह्मन. आधार मतलब द फाउंडेशन विच इज एक्चुअली देयर, विदाउट विच नथिंग एग्जिस्ट्स, विदाउट विच एवरीथिंग इज जस्ट नेम एंड फॉर्म. इट्स द स्क्रीन on which the whole movie is playing. That is Brahman. But there is a movie too. The movie is playing and you're seeing all these different people. What is causing that movie to appear? That is Maya. Yeah?
Yeah.
You need knowledge for that movie to appear. You need some, even if it was a computer program, you need some coding. But that coding can't exist on itself. It has to exist on some substance. That substance is Maya. Brahman. So for now, just remember, Ishwar is equal to Brahman plus Maya. Ishwar is Saguna Brahman. When you say Brahman alone, usually you mean Nirgun Brahman. Both are two aspects of the same thing, depending upon from what standpoint you're looking at it. If you're looking at it with yourself in deep meditation, in nirvikalpa samadhi, you are not considering, you're thinking about yourself as Brahman. You are Brahman. This world doesn't exist. When you're looking at it from the perspective of an individual as a jiva who has a separate mind, who is observing things around you, then all these things exist. Ishwar also exists. And people and jivas and all this universe exists. But we say that the basis of that universe is Brahman. Therefore we say Saguna Brahman. That means Brahman with gunas. Nirgun means without gun. Sagun means with gun. Gun is properties, characteristics. So when we think about Brahman with all these properties and, Maya and Sattva, Rajas, Tamas and all of those kinds of things, then it is Sagun. We think about the same Brahman without just the essence, it is nirgun. Okay? Beginning to understand the difference?
Yeah.
Okay, this is
It
going to
will
come
take a
again and
while.
again and again. So, we'll get it. This whole idea of Paramarthika, Vyavaharika, Drishti, हमेशा अब तुम कभी भी अब तुम पढ़ोगे ना, कभी भी आप पढ़ो गीता या कुछ भी, you will begin to think, try to see what perspective is being used here. When God says be a Karam Yogi, when Ishwar says to Arjun, go fight, what perspective is he using? He is not using a Paramarthika perspective.
That's
Paramarthika वो
Vyavaharika.
अगर वो ब्रह्मन है तो उसने क्या जाके लड़ाई करनी है? He's using a Vyavaharika perspective. But when he says I am everything, ये दुनिया में कुछ नहीं है, बाकी सब नाम रूप है, ये सब है, then what perspective is he using? Then he's using Paramarthika perspective. Right? Okay. So the second one. This you guys should know. This is just a this में ज़्यादा सोचने का नहीं है. So त्रैगुणा माया याद है आपको, हमने बताया था लास्ट टाइम संजय, क्या है
सत्व तमस
और
सत्व रजस
Rajas.
tamas.
Exactly. And what is the difference between the three?
The properties, na? Each has its own properties. Na?
Right. They are called gunas.
Gunas.
Sattva. So anything, Maya is made up of these three things. जब हम कहते हैं ना माया, Maya को we conceive as made up of these three gunas. These are the gunas in Maya. Sattva means that property of guna, that guna of Maya, which gives it purity, the ability to have knowledge. We say the ability to reflect consciousness. अगर सत्वा नहीं होता ना माया में, तो हम दुनिया ही ना देख सकते. जो हमारा मन है ना, हमारा माइंड, हम कहते हैं हम क्या है माया. When I say I'm धीरज and I have a mind, that mind and it's a सूक्ष्म शरीर, it's all Maya. Now this mind is able to reflect consciousness. It actually thinks I am conscious. ये प्रॉपर्टी कहां से आई माइंड में? कैसे हुआ कि ये एक माइंड है विच ऑल ऑफ अ सडन, पत्थर तो नहीं सोचता आई एम कॉन्शियस, लेकिन मन सोचता है आई एम कॉन्शियस. वो सोचता है आई एम अलाइव. इट हैज अ सेंस ऑफ इट सेल्फ एज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम एवरीथिंग एल्स. ये कहां से आई माइंड में? ये जो प्रॉपर्टी है इसको कहते हैं सत्व. ये गुण है माया में. ये माया में गुण है दैट माया हैज द एबिलिटी टू थिंक ऑफ इट सेल्फ एज कॉन्शियस. It can reflect consciousness. That is what makes this world so exciting, which makes all this possible. So this is called sattva. The ability of Maya to do this. That's why they say that all the mind is pure sattva. Last time you remember we had talked about the creation theory and we said कि जो sattva है, that becomes the sense organs and the mind. Why sattva? Because those things have the ability to reflect consciousness, to think of themselves as existing separate from everything else, to have a concept of an understanding of themselves, to get knowledge. अगर कुछ देखते हैं बाहर से, then the mind can perceive, the mind can think. All these are properties of consciousness. An inert object cannot perceive. An inert object cannot think. An inert object cannot desire. It cannot love. It cannot hate. For all this, you need consciousness. And it is true that the consciousness, the real consciousness, is only Brahman, only one, Atma. But Maya has this ability, especially the mind, because the sattva part of Maya, to reflect that consciousness and assume it upon itself. To think as if that I am conscious. It is not conscious. It is not. The reality is that the consciousness is Atma itself. But because it can reflect, it can almost think like I am conscious. That property is called sattva. And you can see, impossible to have world without it, right? And wherever there is sattva, there is this feeling of being alive. The mind has sattva. They say our sense organs, not the gross sense organs, not our eyes which you can see, the subtle sense organs, the sense organs to which these gross eyes are connected, which actually perceives the light which is falling in reflection and sees all the things. That subtle eye is also made of sattva. The subtle ear which hears is also made of sattva. And what they do is they combine whatever they are feeling and hearing all together in one and make one reality. That is done by the mind. And that is also subtle mind, of course. Mind is subtle. And that is also sattva. So our entire mechanism for receiving stimulus through eyes, ears, touch, all these, there are 5 sense organs. Our entire mechanism for being able to perceive that and individually by the senses and then to combine them and make one whole out of it, which is done by the mind, all of that is sattva. Similarly, our ability to think and imagine, to dream and perceive all that is also sattva. So this property of Maya is sattva. Right? अभी तक?
Right.
Gupta?
ठीक है.
ठीक है. So ये तो एक हो गई. दूसरी कौन सी थी संजय? 3 गुना?
Sattva, Rajas and Tamas.
Rajas, right? So Rajas क्या है? Rajas is the activity of motion. Everything in this world is moving. That's how actions happen. Activity happens. Dynamism, that's Rajas. So, can you conceive of anything in this world which is not in motion? Even if you say there's a stone at rest, it's not actually at rest. There are molecules and electrons within it which are moving constantly. Can you imagine an electron at rest? It's not possible. Can you imagine light at rest? Not possible. The fundamental, as you go deeper and deeper into matter and try to understand, resolve it into smaller and smaller pieces and go deeper and deeper and deeper into it, you'll see there's motion, constant motion. Constant motion. There is not a moment of rest. At the highest level, the planets are moving around the sun is moving around the solar system, the galaxy. Milky Way is moving around its own cluster of galaxies. The whole universe is expanding. There's constant motion. At the smallest level, atoms and molecules and electrons and neutrons and muons, all of them are constantly moving. So you think about it, how did this happen that everything is moving all the time? We never think about it. That there is nothing in this universe which is at rest. Nothing. Our thoughts are also moving all the time. कभी कभी आपने सुना है एक थॉट आई है और स्टक हो गई है, आगे नहीं बढ़ी? कभी नहीं हुआ. एक थॉट आएगी, it will go away. Sometimes you can get the same thought again and again and again and again. That's called obsessive behavior. You're just obsessed. The same thought is coming again and again. But it's not stuck. It's coming again and again in a loop. Nothing is ever stationary. You just think about it. How did this happen? That property. Sometimes I wonder, these guys in 6, 7, 8, 10,000 years ago, they actually thought all this. They realized that there is this basic property of the world, of creation, which they defined as Rajas, which they call dynamism. Similarly, they thought about it and said, how is it that some people, some elements can think of themselves and be conscious? They defined this as sattva. This is like the basic thing beyond which you can't define. You cannot break this beyond. You can't go beyond Rajas and say there's something more fundamental than this. These are the three most fundamental things of Maya. Right? The third thing is tamas. So tamas is the ability for things to become. Oh, by the sorry, before we go to tamas. So just like I said, our subtle body, the mind and the organs of perception are made out of sattva. Now remember, the organs of action are made out of rajas, because rajas is action. So when we say, I want to walk, there is a gross organ of walking, which is our legs. But I'm not talking about the gross. I'm talking about the subtle organ of action. In our mind, from our mind, there is a desire, there is a tendency, there's an instruction. Walk. There is a will. We don't just start walking. Somewhere in our mind, the decision was made that I am going to walk. Yes? That was made
Yes.
at a subtle level. From that subtle level, somehow the decision got transferred on to our gross level, and a muscle moved. Electrical impulses were sent. The muscle moved, and you started walking. At the very subtle level, in the level of the mind, action happened. A decision का मतलब क्या हुआ? An action happened. Something stirred. Something moved. We decided to take an action. That is rajas, which made that happen. Therefore, they say the organs of action at the very subtle level are made out of rajas. Only rajas. Remember, when you are experiencing things, when you're observing, make it all in the mind, it's all sattva, right? You're perceiving. When you're taking action, when you're deciding to take action, there's dynamism, it is rajas. So organs of actions are made out of rajas, organs of perception or knowledge are made out of sattva. समझ आई distinction? Mukta?
Right.
हाँ ठीक है.
And the third one is tamas. Tamas is that part of Maya which allows Maya to become from subtle to gross. Gross का मतलब क्या है? Although everything is moving, everything is, and there are things which you can see, when you look at the creation, you feel inertia, you feel like there is some solidity, there is name and form. At the subtle level, there is no name and form. But you see the world as name and form. So, what makes this world, which is basically what makes molecules and energy, which is the foundation of the world, appear as wood or as this metal? Where does the transfer, how does it happen that actually this is, they say E is equal to mc square? Actually, mass is nothing but energy. But we see it as mass. We see this world around us as name and form. How does that happen? How does this very subtle world, how does this world of energies appear to us as name and form? The ability of Maya to show up as name and form. That means name and form के अंदर एक चीज है. You can't have a form if you're changing all the time. There can be no form. क्या form होगा? Before you realize ये क्या form है, it's already changed to a different form. So, although there is dynamism all the time, at the same time, to us, the world also appears to have a form. There's an aspect of the world which seems to have a form. We can say, yeah, that form is Mukta. That form is Sanjay. Sanjay is not changing and dynamically becoming Mukta and then suddenly becoming Dheeraj and becoming something else, right? That's not happening. So the ability to have name and form, that means the ability to have inertia, is called tamas. That is also a property of Maya. So these are the three fundamental properties of Maya: Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. They, between the three, the world is created. And that is why they say in the theory, when grossification happens, Panchakarni, you remember we talked about it last time? How gross things become, how subtle things become gross. That you have 50%, let's say you want to make subtle earth, how does it become gross earth? 50% of subtle earth and 1/8 of subtle water, 1/8 of subtle air, 1/8 of subtle space, 1/8 of subtle fire combined together to form the gross earth. That process is Panchakarna. We talked about it last time. We say this process happens from the tamas aspect of Maya. Because we are now creating a name and form. And these three things, the three aspects, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, are always together. They are constantly in Maya all the time. They are, they are inlaid into Maya and inlaid into this creation. Okay?
Okay.
I know a
No, it's okay.
lot of information, but it's important to understand really what do we mean. हम कहते रहते हैं Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, but what does it actually mean? So listen to this again, maybe, as a recording or whatever, and just try to absorb, just try to feel what Sattva, Rajas, Tamas actually are and why there can be no world without these three things. And these three things are, they are the basis of our experience. Without name and form, we wouldn't experience. Without a Sattva mind, we can't experience. Without Rajas, which is always moving, there'll be no action. There'll be only name and form which is being experienced. That is also not okay. There's action, there's change. The world is changing all the time. New things are being formed. That's what makes it interesting. Old things are dying, new things are forming. है ना? नया नया कुछ, that is all Rajas. So जो बहुत डायनामिक लोग होते हैं ना, एक्चुअली गीता में आगे जाके भगवान कृष्ण talks about the different kinds of people. He defines 4 kinds of people. जो राजसिक लोग होते हैं ना, which have a lot of rajas in them, they are the dynamic people. They are the ones who do things in the world. Entrepreneurs banenge, doctors banenge, teachers banenge, Especially if you have rajas prominent and sattvic secondary. That means you do good things. If you have rajas prominent and tamas secondary, then you are very dynamic, but you do bad things. You'll become a Ravan. ठीक है? So it's very important to understand these, because you will find them in our thinking, in our culture. They are there's a lot. One sec. These things come. You'll hear about them a lot, very often. Okay. Shall we continue? You have the stamina,
Yeah.
or tell me whenever you want to call it a day. We can. If you have any questions or anything else you want to talk about, we can do that.
And we can continue for another 15 minutes. It's okay.
How is the world created? This we talked about last time. But now that you understand a little bit more deeply these gunas, right? We said that the theory, the Vedantic theory of creation is you have Brahman, you have Maya, you have Ishwar. That is the basic foundation. Maya is never created. Maya has always been there. Just like Brahman is always there, Anitya, Maya is Anitya also. You can't say that Brahman became Maya and Maya came out of somewhere. No. Maya is knowledge which is always there. It was never created, is never destroyed. Maya cannot be destroyed. Maya can be in avyakta form or vyakta form. Avyakta का मतलब unmanifest. Vyakta का मतलब manifest. That's all. Maya can just move between manifest and unmanifest form. That's all. It is not created, not destroyed. Just like Brahman. It is neither created nor destroyed, nor can it exist on its own. On its own. Maya can only exist. It is basically, essentially, the substance of Maya is Brahman. Just like we say, Hamara substance is Brahman, the substance of Maya is Brahman. Brahman is what is really there. Maya is, another name for Maya is Mithya. You can call it Mithya also. Okay? And this Maya, when is unmanifest, we say we are in Pralay, Laya. From unmanifest, it starts getting manifest. How does it start getting manifest? First, it creates Akash. Space, air, fire, water, earth. First, it creates space. Then from there, space creates air. Air creates fire. Fire creates water. Water creates earth. So that's the progression that they show. And there's more thinking behind it as to why in this order. But Vedanta defines the whole world as the basic elements. They're called tan matras. The basic elements are these 5. Okay? And then from this subtle elements, the sattvic part of each element becomes one of our sense organs, the perception ke sense organs. Combined together, these sattvic portions of all of these elements become the mind. The rajasic portion of each of these 5 elements, they become our organs of action. And the tamasic portion of each of these elements undergo the process of panchikarna and become this world. So I'm just going through it in a very fast thing because we've gone through this before. And it's not really that important. I mean, you just need to understand the concept. You don't need to remember all the details. That's how the world is created. And it keeps changing because there's rajas there. There is life in this world. You think that there are jivas. Why are jivas there? Because there's a mind. Why is the mind there? Because there's sattva. The world keeps changing because of the rajas part, and the world keeps showing up in names and forms. You can see it around because of the tamas part. And then, because there's rajas, it keeps changing. There'll be a time when it'll dissolve. Maya just becomes back into its unmanifest form. And that's called pralay. Then creation. So this happens again and again and again. And all the jivas in the world also get resolved into Maya, and then they come back again as jivas. That's the creation theory. So this now is the really important part, because Sanjay had also asked this question. And I don't want to cover this if you guys are tired. We can do this next time. But it's really, you have to understand what is this and what is unique about Vedanta. Well, maybe I'll just run through it quickly, and then we can cover this in more detail later.
Okay.
What you got to understand is, when we say that Brahman or Maya becomes this world, what is really happening? Can Brahman actually transform to become this world? So if you look at most of the philosophies or religions and all, they say God created this world. God is Ishwar. So Vedanta also says, yeah, God created this world. So and these are different levels of understanding. When we start teaching Vedanta, the first level is God created this world. This is what we say. God is the nimitta karana or the upadana karana. These are just technical terms for creation of the world. Material cause and the intelligent cause of the world. That's what we say. What are we saying then? A person who hears this, uske man mein kya hoga? Oh, there's a God somewhere. He's sitting down and he's, creating the world. And when he's creating the world, he first creates space, and then he creates fire and whatever, that kind of thing. But that's not really true. Then we say, next level, as the person gets a little bit more familiar, then we start saying, It's not really that God created the world, God became the world. We give the example of a spider. How a spider becomes its own web, its material from its own self. It becomes the web, then it collapses the web back into itself, and all that. So, next level, we say God becomes the world. In the first level, the relationship of Brahman or the creator and the world is that of the creator and of the creation. The world is the creation, God is the creator. In the second level, we are saying God becomes the world. So the relationship is, it's me. The world is God. There is no difference between the God and the world. It's the same thing. And the third level, the final level of Vedantic teaching is that God does not become the world. God appears as the world. It's not even a projection. It doesn't even project. Nothing. It is not a doer at all. Brahman cannot do anything. It cannot see, it cannot project, it can't do. It appears as the world. That's the final level of the teaching. That's the Paramarthika level. Nothing has transformed. Brahman has not changed one iota. But we do all this mechanism to show there's Maya and the Maya is changing, all these things we are saying, because actually what is happening, we're trying to make sense of it. But what's really happening is that the Brahman to itself is appearing as the world. To itself, which is Brahman, which is me, I appear as the world. That's all that is going on. There's no change anywhere. So, like I said, this is a difficult one to understand. We need a fresh mind. So, we'll go back to this next time. Similarly, what is unique and different? I will just leave you with this thought. Everywhere else, in all other philosophies, we say that the core substance is jada, is inert. When you think about science, science also has this concept in mind that there is a unique fundamental element from which everything comes. Electrons, quarks, we are trying to find it. But we are assuming in science that element is not chetana. It is achet. It is inert. Somehow that inert element created chetana. Vedanta is the only theory, even amongst Indian theories, which says that the fundamental creator, the fundamental thing in this world is consciousness. It's not inert. This consciousness, this knowledge, this feeling of knowing, this is the fundamental thing from which everything else has come. So it's 180 degrees removed or opposite of science. Okay? And it's called Chetana Karana Vada. That's the Vedantic philosophy. You can call it Chetana Karana Vada. This is what is unique. Like I said, we'll cover these two next time again. I think even I'm tired. I don't know about you.
But for you, it's the morning time, early morning.
I know. And for me, it's early morning. Oh, तुम्हारे लिए तो रात है. I'm sorry, yaar. I mean, like, क्या करें? I think this is not a good way to teach. We should not. That's why they say these things should be learned in the morning, not at night. We are not in a position to understand this in the late night. So I'm more than happy to swap times if ever you want to do that. If ever you find some time in the morning or you're interested to do that, I'm more than happy to do it in my evening because मेरे को ज़्यादा सोचना नहीं है इसमें. ठीक है? Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, sure.
चलो. Anything else you want to talk about or you're done? You need to sleep.
नहीं, आज हमने काफी कुछ इसके अंदर जो मैटर हमारा बिल्कुल, I think this is the crux of Vedanta which you have put forward, and these are 5 very important questions which we should know to the core if we want to understand Vedanta, to get the concepts very, very clear.
Exactly.
तो इसके ऊपर तो बहुत बार इसको स्टडी करना पड़ेगा and get it really embedded in our system. Then only things will move forward and more clarity will come.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Mukta, you okay?
very
Yeah,
good session we had today.
yeah, I am okay.
Very, very informative session and a
जब
lot of clarity coming now.
Go ahead. What are you saying, Mukta?
I was just saying कि जब मैंने दोबारा सुनती हूँ ना 10 दिन बाद, 10-15 दिन बाद
Yes.
मॉर्निंग में सुनती हूँ तो ऐसे लगता है जैसे पहली बार सुनती हूँ.
Yeah. Do that. Do that. Listen to it in the morning.
There,
Take your time,
I,
as many times as you want, ask questions. And Sanjay is totally, absolutely right. These are key questions, you know. Key questions
Yeah.
from the Tadpata perspective, from the perspective of chapter 7 to 12 of the Gita. Key questions. And there are similar key questions also actually from the Tvampada perspective or Jiva, which are, you know, but this is, you're right. This is, if you listen to Brahma Sutra, if you think about Brahma Sutra, this is what Brahma Sutra covers. This is the heart of the philosophy.
What is the
So-
difference between Vedant Sar and Brahma Sutras?
No, so all these all these Vedants are and all these Prakarna Granthas that are coming out. Those are called Prakarna Granthas. So somebody has actually written these things to explain Vedanta to students, fundamentals of Vedanta. Yeah, you know, Vivek Chudamani, Tattva Bodha, you know, Atma Bodha. All these are texts. Advait Makaranda. ये लोगों ने लिखी हैं ताकि आसानी से वेदांता के प्रिंसिपल्स किसी को समझा सकें.
आसानी से तो नहीं समझ आते.
बट जो एक्चुअल द फर्स्ट टेक्स्ट जिसके ऊपर ये सब कुछ बेस्ड है
Hmm,
इस ब्रह्म सूत्र, बिकॉज ब्रह्म सूत्र में
okay.
क्या करा है ब्रह्म सूत्र ने, जो उपनिषद में, जो एक्चुअली उपनिषद है, जो वेद है, वेद में है उपनिषद. उपनिषद इज वेयर ऑल दिस टीचिंग इज देयर.
Yeah.
So it has extracted the key points from the Upanishads and put it together in one text.
Okay.
It's the textbook of Vedanta, written by Vyasacharya many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who knows or wants to understand Vedanta goes there, uses it to understand, and then because it is a complicated text, they simplify it and create new texts. They're called Prakarna Granthas, like, you know, Vivek Chudamani, ye wo ye, which then a teacher will use as that text to explain Vedanta. Rather than teacher creating his own text, he'll just take Vedanta Sara, or he'll take you know, Panchadashi or any of these texts and say, okay, मैं आपको पढ़ाता हूँ इसके through. So that is how it works. But everything that comes into Vedanta, ये भी मैं आपको बताऊंगा, next time we'll talk about it. It comes from the Ved, from the Vedas. Everything can be traced back to the Ved. If it is not in the Ved, it is not in Vedanta. It is not true. All our thinking, all हम कहते हैं ना 4 आश्रम होते हैं, संन्यास आश्रम, वानप्रस्था, ये भी वेद में है. एक वेद है जाबाला उपनिषद उसमें ये लिखा हुआ है. उसको लेके ये पूरा ब्रह्मसूत्र में चला गया. ब्रह्मसूत्र में चला गया. Now it's understood as one of the topics of Vedanta. Now you can write 100 books on it. You can just refer back to Brahma Sutra and write your books on it. It's just amazingly interesting, and it's amazing how so many things that we've born and brought up, हम सुनते आए हैं अपने बचपन से, कितनी सारी चीजें, वो सब उनका आधार वेद है. सब कहीं किसी उपनिषद में कहीं पड़े हुए हैं, and somebody has plucked it out of there, created a theory and properly explained it, put it down into a sutra, Brahma Sutra, and then people have written commentaries and commentaries on commentaries and, you know, on it. But everything can be traced back to the Ved. If it can't be traced back to the Ved, we won't believe it. It's not true. What was the original thought? कहाँ से आई कि we are Atma, we are Brahman? It came from the Ved. But it came from the end part of the Ved, the Upanishads part of the Ved.
और भगवान कृष्ण ने भी तो फिर
Gita,
ये सब
Gita is a prakarna, it's not a prakarna grantha, it's called a smriti grantha. Smriti matlab something which is remembered. Everything in the Gita is traced back to the Ved. Even the Vishwarupa Darshan, वो जो 11वां चैप्टर है ना जिसमें भगवान कृष्ण shows his image, ये सब उपनिषद में डिस्क्राइब करा हुआ है. बट किसी ने उपनिषद तो पढ़ी नहीं है. गीता सबने पढ़ी है. So it's fine, it's good as long as you know, you trust the Gita, and Gita also comes from the Upanishad. There's nothing in the Gita which is not in the Upanishad, or which is not in
किसी
the
ने
Ved.
इतने साल
It could be.
पहले इतना सब कुछ सोचा होगा,
Yeah, it's just
कैसे
mind
सोचा
boggling
होगा.
यार, mind boggling. और अभी तो कहते हैं कि only 10% of the Ved actually remains. 90% has been lost.
लॉस्ट.
Lost to antiquity. Because it was all spoken, लोग बोलते थे, next generation, so people stopped losing interest, और वो भूल गए चीजें. फिर जो लिखी गई थी, जो शंकराचार्य ने 10 उपनिषद के ऊपर कमेंट्रीज लिखी हैं, now those are preserved. But what about the other 1,000 Upanishads which were there in the Veds? I mean, the good news is that all Upanishads say the same thing, so it's okay. But
चलो यार, हम
I,
10% ही
Supritu,
सीख लें, वही बहुत है.
I can see you're ready to pop. So we'll do this next time. Okay?
ओके
चलो.
All right. See you guys.
ओके, बाय बाय.